Fargo Frequently Asked Questions. I'm Conrad Fargo. We're going to Fargo Frequently Asked Questions segment. This is where we get listener mail. So, Josh, I don't know, you know this. We're here with Josh Voytek from the Rootstock Wine Company. You're actually pretty famous. So I said that you were coming in, and then we got a whole bunch of mail just for you.
Sure.
These are directly questions about you and Fargo, but you as well. So I was hoping you would indulge us and we could read them on the air.
Sounds good.
Okay, so the first question we have is from Benny Thompson from Napa Valley, California. Didn't you say you just came back from there?
Close.
Maybe
Sonoma,
maybe you ran into Benny.
Nope, I don't.
He didn't meet you while you were there. Okay. Well, he may have seen you. I don't know. But he asks, are there any advanced courses in Fargo where I can learn the art of pairing hot dish with the finest wines? Or is it strictly red wine goes with everything kind of town?
Ooh, that's a great question. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people kind of go off of the old, white wine with fish, red wine with, red meat kind of thing. But truthfully, I mean, whatever wine you enjoy is the wine that's a good pairing. Now, there's a logic behind why certain wines pair with certain things. A lot of it has to do with the balance of things like acidity and a balance of tannins. Tannins are those things that, when you're drinking particularly red wine, it feels like you're licking a cotton ball. It just like sucks the moisture right out of your tongue. But that can be really good when you're eating something, let's say, for example, really fatty, like a ribeye steak. Because that ribeye steak, all that fat, all that butter is going to coat your tongue and kind of dilute a lot of the flavors you would normally get from it. So the tannins help kind of wash that butter away. And you take a sip of that after taking a big bite of a fatty steak, and suddenly you're back in it again. You can start tasting all the different nuances of that steak, of the sauce, of the potatoes, of whatever else is in there.
Are the tannins what's acidic or?
No, not necessarily acidic, but they're that a lot of people describe as that drying effect, where they say, oh, this is a dry.
They usually come together. So when I drink a drying wine, it gives me the worst. I have a bad stomach, and some things just really bad heartburn.
Sure.
Is it the tannins that are giving me heartburn, or is it the acid that's paired with it?
It could be the acid. So like red wine can have acid too. So we think of like white wine as being acidic. So a grape like Sauvignon Blanc, for example, highly acidic. The way that you can really know with like acidic wines is if you take a big smell, you don't have to even drink the wine. You take a smell of that wine and your mouth is immediately going to start salivating. The reason is because your mouth detects acid and it starts to salivate to protect the enamel of your teeth. So if you take a glass of Sauvignon Blanc, particularly a New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc, which is like bursting with grapefruit, citrus, you are instantly going to start salivating. And you take a sip of it, you'll start salivating again. It's a dry white wine. It's not a sweet wine. It's not I would describe it as juicy, but citrus juicy. But it's got a lot of acidity to it.
I guess I had it totally opposite. I would consider red wines to be acidic just because they're so drying, but that's not connected at all.
No,
acid gives me heartburn. What is it in the red wine that's giving me heartburn?
It could be the sulfites in the wine. So sulfites are produced, and a lot of people, that's what maybe give you heartburn. It could also give you headaches. A lot of people sometimes have allergic reactions to the sulfur.
Yeah.
So sulfur is think of it as like a preservative. it is a naturally occurring preservative, and all wine's going to have some degree of sulfites. But a lot of commercially produced wines will have added sulfites. So in addition to because they want that wine to be shelf-stable, they want that wine to be the same when it leaves the winery to when it's sitting on the shelves, and it's going to drink the same. It's kind of the same effect as just like putting preservatives in a can of soup, or something that you're going to buy at the grocery store. Great for consistency in terms of product, less waste, less things going bad. But on the flip side, consuming those sulfites can also have negative bodily effects, because your body's only designed to produce, to absorb so much sulfites.
So I like that drying effect of the Merlot has a lot of that, or no?
It does, yep. More so Cabernet than Merlot. So like Cabernet and Syrah would be two grapes that would be considered highly tannic. And you'll definitely pick that up. I mean, Syrah typically has like black pepper notes to it, sometimes a little chocolate, usually like more dark fruits.
I mean, so can you get the tannins without the heartburn? That's what I'm at, because I like the tannins, I think.
Yeah, I don't think that
the heartburn kills me.
Yeah, I think it depends. Like sometimes you have to experiment a little bit with the wine as far as it goes, because with tannins too, you can have two different wines that have the same amount of tannins, but depending on like how old the wine is or how much those tannins are broken down. So tannins come from the skins, the seeds, and the stems of the grapes. So some grapes are pressed like whole cluster, where they leave the stems in, they leave the seeds in, and that's going to produce more tannins. Also, if you're aging the wine in oak, it's going to also produce tannins from that as well. So there is certain choices that winemakers might make to remove the skins early in the process, or only press the grapes and remove the seeds and the stems, not have any of that part there, and age in minimal oak. Well, then you're going to have less tannins by nature of how that process works.
Does whiskey have tannins?
Whiskey will have tannins because it
Especially
comes
if
from
it's
the
in
oak. Yeah,
in an oak barrel.
yeah. I mean, if you have like
especially?
White Dog, there's not going to be any tannins in White Dog because that would be the whiskey that you get after the distillate before you put it into the barrel. But as soon as you put something in the barrel, the push and pull, because basically the liquid's going into the wood and then coming out of the wood and going in and going out and that sort of thing. So, for example, bourbon, one of the requirements of bourbon is that it has to be aged in brand new American oak, and it's usually charred American oak. So it's getting all that char, it's getting all that new oak quality. And a lot of that's taking place over the first 4 years of the bourbon aging. You talk about like some bourbons that you can get that are like 12 years aged or even 15 years aged. I just tried one the other day that was a 15-year aged bourbon, and I mean, at a certain point in time, all you're getting is wood. At that point, you're getting less complexity from the whiskey itself. A lot of times, the 4 to 8 years is kind of that sweet spot where you're getting the most amount of effect. Like it needs to stay there for at least 4 years. The 4 to 8 years is where you're getting like the most amount of, because the wood is aged by that point in time, so it's allowing it to like get the more complex flavors that are deep within the wood grain. And then at a certain point in time, like I said, you kind of almost run into a diminishing returns effect. As opposed to like, for example, Scotch whiskey is different that way because you could have like, for example, Scotch that's like 25, like a Macallan 25 or something like that, but it's not spending all those 25 years in barrel. It may only spend a year in barrel. It may spend 6 months in barrel. It may just finish in a particular barrel. There isn't the same requirements for Scotch as there is for bourbon, for example.
What is it doing those last 20 years then?
It could be sitting in vats. It could be sitting in gigantic, big barriques.
Like metal?
Yeah,
metal
it could
vats?
be. Yeah, it could be. That's allowed in the production of Scotch. And you're also using barley in Scotch as opposed to corn and rye. Typically, that's another requirement of bourbon. It has to be at least 51% corn. Straight rye has to be at least 51% rye. So you're using a lot of these grains that you're not going to be seeing at all in Scotch. That's why Scotch is much more delicate. That's why Irish whiskey is much more delicate. But there is still going to be tannins. Like you said, there's still going to be tannins there just coming from the wood grain itself, depending on how much it's used.
Whiskey is the rabbit hole I fell down first with Scotch.
Yeah.
And then I've settled into American whiskeys. I'm in love with them, but I'm not sure what it is that I like so much about them, and I think maybe tannins might be. I think I like high tannin whiskeys maybe. I don't know. I've always tried to put my finger on it. But
well, you could kind of see it a little bit with like the color too. I mean, obviously darker color is going to involve typically more aging, more wood effect, because that's where all the color is coming from there, unless it's a really bad whiskey where they're adding extra caramel coloring,
Canadian whiskey.
I didn't want to say it, but yeah. There's no requirements for Canadian whiskey, so Canadian whiskey can do whatever they want to do.
Yeah, they sure can. We are moving to more Guardians of the Galaxy here. We've got Redbone with their song "Come and Get Your Love." We'll be back with the Fargo Fresh. Don't go nowhere.